Hello, I'm Neil. Today we're going to talk about, for DevOps, what programming language should you learn first? Let's get into it. So maybe you've programmed before, maybe you haven't. I expect at school you might have been taught a programming language, be it BASIC or Java or something like that. But for DevOps, what language do you actually need? There's actually a great choice of languages out there, some of them more relevant than others. For instance, HTML5, well, the ML gives it away, it's a markup language. They are used a lot in DevOps. The other languages, such as Java, you might have already heard of, and PHP. So what language should you have first? Well, it depends. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to do a DevOps focus on this one. Front end, closely tied to web applications. Mobile, a little bit different. I'll just briefly touch on it here. If you're delivering mobile apps, you might want to go with a neutral language. On the other hand, if you want to get close to the hardware, for Android, the obvious choice is Java. And for Apple devices, the obvious choice is Swift. Last on our list here is AI. Most AI is done in Python, or thereabouts. You can get deeper level stuff if you want to put neural nets together, but as it's a lot of math, you need something that's very good at math. And Python on its own, believe it or not, is rubbish at math. You have to import numpty or numpy, or however you say it. At that point, you then get all the math. So in programming, the dev in DevOps is programming. We're not usually talking about front-end or back-end apps. That's more the developer team. Writing helper tools is where the DevOps comes into its own. So we might be talking about an API for the platform, might be writing infrastructure as code, or maybe command line tools as well. But infrastructure as code is a bit different. I mentioned at the start that markup languages are heavily used in DevOps. And this is true. Within defining environments, you've got stuff like Ansible and Terraform, which have their own markup languages. Ansible is in YAML, yet another markup language, in case you're wondering. And Terraform uses its own HashiCorp markup language as well. And the heavy thing in DevOps is the CICD pipelines. What are they written in? Well, in Jenkins, they tend to be written in two things, either a markup language of its own, or something based on Groovy. Most of the other CI/CD tools use a mixture of YAML and other defined config that's specialist to that product. Because as a DevOps engineer, we talk to all sorts of things. We talk to humans, logs, error messages, for instance. We talk to computers. Again, error messages, but you might want to craft it specially so that a computer can look at it and read it. In order for that to happen, that's what a markup language comes into its own, because it's got a defined structure that we can teach the computer what to look for, be it YAML or XML. XML is actually the root markup language that HTML is based on. So the other major part of running DevOps is the tooling, how to create a tool, an API, or a standalone interface. For that, we might have a script. So we've got bash scripting is the basic. Ansible is built on top of bash scripting. If you've seen Packer for building AMIs and disk images, then that also heavily inspired from scripting. We also might want to write a command line interface. For instance, when a server first boots up, we've not installed much to it already. We might need a small tool on there to run something else. When an example might be pip3 that comes with Python, that enables you to install extra dependencies. But it would be pretty bad if it had a dependency itself. Okay, you have to install Python first, so it does. But aside that, it can run on its own. For more advanced stuff, we can write a fully fledged command line interface. Maybe it calls another API that we've got written on the background. So the winner is, well, for DevOps, if you want an all-round language that can touch most things, like run a CLI, write an API, and install various other bits and bobs, then the winner's got to be Python. It's quite a simple language to start with. It will cover the structures that you may or may not have seen before, loops, arrays, that kind of thing. It can run on the command line. It can even be compiled. One thing I'm not touched thing here is a lot of the languages are split between being interpreted or compiled. Just to give you a quick example of that, Python is interpreted but can be compiled as well. Bash scripts are definitely interpreted, and Golang is always compiled. I hope this video has been useful, and I look forward to seeing your comments below on how you get on with learning Python. For more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you soon.